There is something your dog accepts from you every single day. Not because they like it, not because they understand it, but because somewhere along the way, they learned they don't have a choice. And once you truly see it, you won't be able to look at your dog the same way again. You look at them and think they're happy. They eat when you feed them. They follow you from room to room. They lie quietly beside you at the end of the day. Everything seems calm, predictable, safe. But here's the part most people miss. Calm is not the same as comfort. Silence is not the same as trust. Because dogs don't resist the way humans do. They don't argue when something feels wrong. They don't explain what makes them uncomfortable. They adapt. They start adjusting their behavior, little by little, until it fits the version of them that works best for you. They stop doing the things that create tension. They soften the signals you don't respond to. They hold back reactions that once came naturally. And over time, something subtle begins to happen. Their world gets smaller. Their voice gets quieter. Their needs become less visible. Not because they disappeared, but because expressing them stopped working. So what you're left with is a dog that feels incredibly easy to live with. Calm, obedient, undemanding. But beneath that ease, there's a quieter truth. They didn't become this way because they wanted to. They became this way because they learned it was the only way to stay close to you. One of the most common things your dog learns to accept is your version of affection. You reach down to pet them. You wrap your arms around their body. You pull them closer, kiss their face, hold them just a little longer than they'd choose, and they don't resist. So you assume they love it. But if you slow down and really watch, you'll notice something different. A slight turn of the head, a blink that lingers too long, the body going just a little bit still, not relaxed, not leaning in, just still. Because in the canine world, this kind of contact doesn't mean what you think it means. Direct pressure, prolonged holding, being restrained, these aren't natural expressions of comfort. They're signals of control. But your dog doesn't push you away, not because they enjoy it, but because they've learned something far more important, that your affection isn't something they can negotiate. So instead of responding honestly, they start responding safely. They freeze instead of moving away. They tolerate instead of engaging. They stay. Because leaving has never really been an option. And over time, that pattern becomes automatic. You reach out, they go still. You pull them closer. They wait for it to end. Not scared enough to fight. Not comfortable enough to enjoy. Just somewhere in between. And the most difficult part to accept is this. Your dog isn't confused about what's happening. They understand you. They know this is how you show love. They just quietly choose to accept it the only way they know how. There's another thing your dog learns to accept, and it may be the one that changes them the most. Being corrected for emotions they were never meant to control. They bark when something feels wrong. They growl when they feel cornered. They hesitate when they're unsure. These aren't acts of defiance. They're expressions of a nervous system trying to cope. But from the outside, it doesn't look that way. It looks inconvenient. It looks like disobedience. It looks like something that needs to be fixed. So we step in. We say no. We pull them back. We interrupt the moment before it can escalate. And in doing so, we believe we're helping. But emotions don't disappear when you suppress them. They go underground. Your dog learns quickly, not about the world, but about you. They learn that barking leads to pressure. That growling leads to correction. That showing discomfort doesn't make things safer. It makes things harder, so they adjust. They stop barking. They stop growling. They stop showing you the early signs that something is wrong. And from your perspective, everything seems better, quieter, smoother, more under control. But what's really happening is that the communication is breaking down. The fear is still there. The stress is still building. The discomfort is still real. The only thing that's gone is your ability to see it coming. And when a dog loses the ability to warn you, when their voice no longer works, they don't become calmer. They become unpredictable. Because the next time that feeling rises high enough, it won't come out as a signal. It will come out as a reaction. Sometimes, the easiest dogs to live with are the ones you should pay the most attention to. They don't demand your time. They don't interrupt your routine. They don't react when something changes in their environment. They just stay quiet. Always nearby, but never in the way. Always present, but never asking for anything. And from the outside, it feels ideal. A perfect dog. Calm, obedient, low maintenance. The kind of dog people say they wish they had. But here's the uncomfortable question. What if that calm isn't coming from trust? What if it's coming from something else entirely? In behavioral psychology, there's a state called learned helplessness. It happens when an animal experiences the same outcome over and over again, regardless of what they do. They try to move away, nothing changes. They try to communicate, nothing changes. They try to resist, nothing changes. So, eventually, they stop trying. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly. They begin to conserve their energy. They stop offering behaviors that used to come naturally. They stop initiating interaction the way they once did. And over time, they become quieter. Not peaceful, just passive. This is what makes it so hard to recognize. Because it doesn't look like distress. There's no barking, no pulling, no obvious signs that something is wrong. Instead, you see a dog lying in the same spot for hours, watching but not engaging, present but disconnected from what's happening around them. There's no resistance, but there's also no curiosity, no spark, no sense that they believe their actions matter. And that belief is everything, because a dog that feels safe in the world doesn't disappear inside it. They explore, they make choices, they interact, they bring energy into the space they live in. Even in calm moments, there is life in them. So when a dog becomes too easy, too quiet, too predictable, too perfectly well-behaved in every situation, it's worth pausing for a second, because you may not be looking at a dog who has learned everything. You may be looking at a dog who has slowly learned that nothing they do makes a difference anymore. And once a dog reaches that point, they don't need guidance. They need their voice back. It's almost never one big moment that changes how your dog feels about you. It's not one mistake, not one bad day, not one time you got it wrong. It's the small things, the ones that don't seem important at the time, the moments you don't even remember, but your dog does. Calling them and not meaning it. You say their name, they come running, expecting something, connection, direction, a reason, but nothing happens. So next time, they hesitate. Not because they don't love you, but because they're learning that your voice doesn't always lead somewhere clear. Or when you reach out to touch them, not asking, not noticing, just assuming. Sometimes they lean away slightly. Sometimes their body stiffens for just a second. But you keep going. Because to you, it's harmless. To them, it's information. And dogs are always collecting information. Every interaction answers a question. Does my response matter? Do I have a choice here? Will I be understood if I try to communicate? And over time, those answers begin to form a pattern, not based on what you feel for them, but on what you consistently show them. Because dogs don't learn from your intentions. They learn from repetition, from what happens again, and again, and again. So if their signals are ignored often enough, they don't get louder. They fade. If moving away doesn't work, they stop moving. If expressing discomfort changes nothing, they stop expressing. And slowly, without any dramatic moment to mark it, the relationship shifts. Not visibly, not obviously, but internally. The dog that once tried to communicate with you begins to simplify itself, becomes easier to read because there's less being shown. And that can feel like improvement, like things are finally working. But what's really happening is that the conversation is getting smaller. And when a relationship becomes one-sided, where only one voice is consistently heard, it doesn't break all at once. It erodes, quietly, gradually, until one day, you realize your dog has stopped asking, and that silence was built from moments that once felt too small to matter. But here's the part most people never hear. Your dog hasn't stopped trusting you, not completely, because if they had, they wouldn't still choose to stay close to you. They wouldn't still follow you from room to room. They wouldn't still rest near you when nothing is happening. They wouldn't still look at you the way they do. There is still something there. Something intact, something patient, something waiting. And that means one very important thing. You haven't lost it, not yet. Because the same way trust was slowly shaped over time, it can be rebuilt the same way. Not through big gestures, not through perfect training, not by trying to fix everything at once, but through small moments, the ones that used to go unnoticed. When your dog turns their head slightly away, and you stop instead of continuing. When they hesitate, and you give them space instead of pressure. When they look at you, and you respond, not with control, but with understanding. These moments seem small, but to your dog, they change everything. Because for the first time, their voice leads to something different, something safe, something consistent, something that tells them, I'm finally being heard. And slowly, almost invisibly, they begin to come back, not all at once, but in pieces. A little more curiosity, a little more movement, a little more willingness to engage, not because they have to, but because they want to. And that's the difference. That's what real trust looks like. Not obedience, not silence, but a dog who feels safe enough to be fully themselves again. So the next time you're with your dog, don't just look at what they're doing. Look at what they're trying to tell you, because they've been communicating with you this entire time. You just didn't know how to see it yet. And if this made you pause, if it made you look at your dog a little differently, then stay here, because this is what we do. We help you understand what your dog has been saying, long before you ever learned how to listen. Subscribe, and start seeing your dog for who they truly are.